Welcome to 7.4. Today we're going to add and subtract integers and decimals combined. So let's review. So negative 11 plus negative 9, negative 20, right? You owe 11, you owe 9, you owe 20. 7 plus negative 8, negative 1. Right? There's one extra negative there. Number 3, negative 6 plus positive 2, negative 4. You have 4 extra negatives. On the bottom, you're subtracting. So subtraction, you add the opposite, right? In each of these cases, you're adding the opposite, and these problems should look familiar because they have the exact same answers as the ones above it. All right, so integers are positive and negative whole numbers. So which of those are integers? Well, negative 4 is an integer, 7 is an integer, and 401 is an integer, right? Decimals and fractions are not integers. Negative 0.5 repeating, yeah, you can have negative repeating decimals. So the integers there are 16, negative 3, and most importantly 0 is, we say positive and negative whole numbers. Whole numbers include 0. Now 0 is never negative, it's neutral, so that's a little confusing, but 0 is an integer and it is a whole number. No fractions, no decimals. So what this day is about is combining what we've learned so far. So let's just do that. Negative 4 plus 9, 5. Negative 12 plus 7, negative 5. Negative 6 plus negative 8, negative 14. 13 minus negative 3. I'm going to start actually putting these all up because I'm going so fast. 13 minus negative 3 is the same as 13 plus 3, which is 16. 4 minus 10 is the same as 4 plus negative 10, which is negative 6, right? 10 minus 4 is 6. 4 minus 10 is the opposite. Negative 7 minus negative 2 is the same as negative 7 plus 2, negative 5. Negative 7 plus minus 12, same as negative 7 plus negative 12, negative 19. And 8 minus negative 7, same as 8 plus 7, 15. Right, so that's all review. Now, just one of the things you should be careful of. Once you start adding the opposite, students start adding the opposite when it's adding, like it's adding, and they change it to more adding the opposite or subtracting the opposite. No, you change subtraction to adding the opposite. Okay. So you have to be able to do the work, but you also have to be able to look at expressions and know have the same answer. So, right, which ones are the same? Well, this one is the same as 9 plus 4. This one is the same as 9 plus negative 4, right? It's this one and this one that will have the same answer. 3 plus negative 7, we don't change that one, but this is negative 3 plus negative 7. And this is negative 3 plus 7. Uh-oh. Yeah, it's these first two. Sorry, for a second I had a little brain freeze that I couldn't figure out which ones were the same. They will have the same answer. And so if you have negative x plus negative y, right, I just put letters there, that will have the same answer as negative x minus y. Similarly up here, let me just change colors here for a second. Up at the top, x plus the opposite of y will have the same answer as x minus y for all values of x and y. When adding and subtracting are mixed together, you just change the subtractions to adding the opposite. 7 plus 6 plus 4, right? You only change that one to adding the opposite, and those add up to 17. You leave the first number the same, the subtractions get changed to adding the opposite. Now, one of the big advantages of changing things to adding the opposite is, right, you have a commutative property once it's addition, right? Right there, there's subtraction. We would have to follow order of operations, PEMDAS rules, if we were leaving it that way. But once it's addition, you can do it any way you want. That becomes positive 1, negative 5 plus 1, negative 4. Again, you leave the first number the same no matter what. You change the subtractions to adding the opposite, so you leave that last one. These two make 11. 11 plus negative 3 is positive 8. You could have commutative property, done that in any order you wanted. All right, so now we're going to do decimals. So 7.6 plus negative 12 plus 4.4. So I might add these two positives together, 7.6 plus 4.4, right? It's addition now. Don't have to worry about order of operations. And so now those add up to 12. Oh my goodness, so it's 12 plus negative 12. It's 0. All right, so negative 18, the first number stays the same. Adding negative stays the same. That becomes plus negative 6.5. So I'm going to add these two negatives together, 6.5 and 3.5. And oh, I get 10, but that's negative 10. So it's negative 18 plus negative 10, it's negative 28. Again, first number stays the same. Subtraction becomes adding the opposite. Minus negative 2.4 becomes plus 2.4. That also gets changed, plus negative 7.2. So I'm going to add those two, right? So 18, right, you're going to take away, I could do this in my head, but let's just show that. Oh, not so well, you have borrowing or regrouping in it. So yeah, if I had done it in my head, I may have made a mistake, but this is negative 15.6. There's 15.6 extra negatives there. Now I'll add that to the negative 7 and 2/10, and so it's 15.6 plus 7.2. It's negative 22 and 8/10. Which number is closest to the exact answer? Okay. So when I do this kind of wording, I'm not looking for you to do the work. What I'm looking for you to do is realize that's around 13, right? Rounding to the nearest whole number, that would stay at 13. And that rounds up to negative, or in this case rounds down because negative 7 is lower than that number. But that rounds the 6 up to a 7. So that answer has to be around that answer. And 13 plus negative 7 is positive 6. And so that's all I'm really looking for you to do. That's in blue there is what the work I'm looking for. Use your rounding to understand what those numbers are approximately. All right, Ron was already overdrawn on his checking account, negative 32. So if you write checks for more money than you have, I know we don't use a lot of checking anymore, but they're still around. If you write a check for more money than you have in your bank account, it's called overdrawn. You drew a check. So Ron is negative $32.60. Then he wrote another check. So he subtracted more money from his account. Right? Every time you write the check, that money is withdrawn from the account. Right? Now you could have also written this right away as adding a negative $47.05. So the balance of in his account, right, is negative $32.60 plus another negative $47.05. And if you do this, by the way, there will also be a fee that the bank charges you for what's called bouncing a check, and 2 plus 7. And so it will be, if you look, usually they even put it in red, and it will be saying negative $79.65 plus another fee to make it even worse, probably like 30 bucks or so. So you'd be negative over $100. The temperature was negative 6 degrees and then went down 10 more. Right, so it went down 10 more. Right, down 10. All right, so it's negative 6 plus negative 10, negative 16. Oh, and degrees, it's a word problem. That's how you could write the word degrees, but that little small circle means degrees. All right, we're going to show this on a number line, I think, in the next lesson. But if you start at negative 6, right, thermometers are usually vertical like that. The negatives are always at the bottom. And then you go down 10 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, now you're down at negative 16 degrees. You're down 10. The temperature was -6 degrees, but then went up 10 degrees. What's the new temperature? Well, now you're at 4 degrees. So let's show that. Just change colors. So we were at the -6 degrees, but then we went up 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know if I drew that correctly. 7, 8, 9, 10. You go up 10, you're at +4 degrees. Down is subtraction, up is adding. All right, what are the following numbers called because they contain no fractions or decimals? They're called integers. We're going to practice. So 15 minus 21.8 is the same as 15 plus -21.8. So the answer is going to be negative. Negative what? Well, 21.8 minus 15 is -6 8/10, -6.8. These are both negative, so the answer, we're just going to add these up. Lining up our decimal points, very easy here. I'm getting -32 1/10. This is 23 67/100 plus 19 5/10, right? You add the opposites, you're just going to add those up. And again, we're lining up our decimal points. And we get 43 17/100. Here you leave the first number the same. You add the opposite. And they're both negative, so we're going to add these all up. I think this is going to come out very nicely. Let's see. So 9 plus 1 is 10, carry the 1, 10, carry the 1, 10, 10, carry the 1, 13, and I'm getting, we're not going to write 23.000, we're going to write, and ooh, this is -23 because they were both negative. You leave the first number the same always. You change just the subtractions to adding the opposite. You leave that plus 12 just the way it is. So I'm going to add these two up, 4.6 plus 7.4. And I'm going to get -12 plus +12. They add up to 0. The temperature was 10 degrees, that's positive, and then went down 14.5. That's what was the new temperature. So 10 minus 14.5, same as 10 plus -14.5, which is -4, right? You can do that in your head, 14.5 minus 10. It's -4.5 degrees. Write the word, word problems, write a word or a symbol that represents a word. Good luck on the homework.